All right, let's dive straight into our first topic, shall we? We're going to be exploring the definition and concept of tenses in the English language. Now, when we talk about tenses, we're really referring to the way that verbs change in order to express time. So, when you think about it, tenses are essentially the backbone of the English language. They help us express when something happened, is happening, or will happen. So they're like a time machine, but for language. It's a way for us to communicate about the past, the present, and the future, all through the verbs we use. We've got 3 basic tenses in English: past, present, and future. Each of these has 4 aspects, which we use to create a wide range of expressions about time. But don't worry, we're going to get into more detail about these soon. For now, let's keep it simple. The past tense, it talks about things that have already happened. The present tense, it's all about what's happening right now. And the future tense, you guessed it, it's all about what's going to happen or what might happen. So, imagine you're telling a story.
The tenses you use are like the threads you weave together to create the tapestry of your narrative.
They help your listeners understand when each event is happening, giving them a clear picture of your story in their minds. Remember, it's not just about using the right tense, but also about using the right form of that tense to express exactly when and how something happened. This might seem a bit complex now, but as we delve deeper into each tense, it'll become clearer, I promise. All right, that about wraps up our first topic. You've had a quick look at what tenses are and why they're so important in the English language. In our next section, we will delve a bit further into the crucial role tenses play in conveying accurate meaning in English. So, stick around. All right, now that we have a basic understanding of what tenses are, let's delve into the role and importance of tenses in conveying accurate meaning in English. The thing about tenses is they're not just about time, they're also about accuracy. They help us to express exactly when things happen, but they also help us to show different realities, possibilities, and perspectives. Let's take a simple example. If I say, I walk to the park, you understand that this is something I do regularly in the present. But if I say, I walk to the park, it means I did this in the past. It's a completed action. And if I say, I will walk to the park, it indicates a future plan or action. See, just by changing the tense of the verb, the entire meaning of the sentence shifts. That's the power of tenses in English. They help us express our thoughts, actions, and ideas accurately, ensuring that we're understood exactly as we intend to be. Tenses also help us to show different attitudes towards events. For example, the difference between I have done, present perfect, and I did, simple past, is not just about time, but also about how the speaker sees the action. The present perfect shows that the action is relevant to the present, while the simple past suggests that it's completed and separate from the present. But that's not all. Tenses can also express conditions, like in the conditional sentences, where we use different tenses to talk about possible or hypothetical situations. For instance, if I had known, I would have acted differently uses the past perfect tense to express a past condition, and they would have plus past participle form to express a hypothetical action. So, you see, tenses are much more than just a grammatical must-know. They're essential tools that allow us to express a wide range of meanings, realities, and attitudes. They're the very essence of effective communication in English. All right. You've covered quite a bit of ground here. You've looked at the vital role tenses play in ensuring accurate communication in English. As we move on, we'll start delving into each tense individually, starting with the past tense. So don't go anywhere. All right, it's time to roll up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty. We're now going to delve into the past tense, its rules, and examples of its various forms. The past tense, as you might have guessed, is used to talk about events that have already happened. But it's not just about saying something happened in the past. There are different forms of past tense that help us express how these events relate to each other and to the present. Let's start with the simplest form, the simple past tense. This is used to talk about completed actions or states in the past. For example, I ate breakfast early this morning. Simple, right? Next up, we have the past continuous or past progressive tense. This is used to describe actions that were ongoing at a specific time in the past, like I was studying when she called. Then we've got the past perfect tense, which is used to talk about actions that were completed before another action. In the past, for example, I had already eaten when she called. And finally, we have the past perfect continuous tense. This is used for actions that started in the past and continued up until another time in the past. For instance, I have been studying for 2 hours when she called. The forms might seem daunting at first, but remember, each form has a specific role to play in expressing time, sequence, duration, and completion. Let's take a quick example. If I say I was living in New York when I met her, the usage of past continuous tense indicates that my living in New York was an ongoing situation when the event of meeting her took place. Yeah, if I say I had lived in New York for 5 years when I met her, the past perfect tense indicates a completed action, living in New York for 5 years before meeting her. See the difference? It's all about the details.
And that's the beauty of tenses in English.
So with that, we've covered the past tense in its various forms. Remember, practice is key when it comes to mastering these. Up next, we'll be exploring the present tense, so stay tuned. Let's move on to the present tense and its forms. The present tense might seem straightforward. It's all about what's happening right now, right? Well, not exactly. The present tense in English has some interesting quirks that make it more versatile than you might think. First off, the simple present tense. We use this to talk about habits, routines, facts, and general truths. For example, I brush my teeth every morning. Or the earth revolves around the sun. Then we have the present continuous tense, which is used to talk about actions happening right now or around now, and also for future plans. For instance, I am reading a book. Or we are meeting them. After that, we got the present perfect tense. This is used for actions that happened at an unspecified time before now, or actions that started in the past and continue to the present. For example, I have visited Paris twice, or she has lived here for 20 years. Lastly, there's the present perfect continuous tense. This is used for actions that started in the past and are still happening now, or repeated actions that have just finished and have results in the present. For example, I have been studying all day. Or, it has been raining, that's why the streets are wet. Take note that each form of the present tense gives a different perspective on an action or situation. It's not just about what's happening, but also how it's happening, how long it's been happening, and how it relates to the now. For instance, I live in New York simply states a fact, but I'm living in New York might suggest a temporary situation or a recent change. Similarly, I have lived in New York for 5 years emphasizes the duration of the action, and I have been living in New York for 5 years emphasizes the continuity of the action up to now. So, you see, the present tense is more than meets the eye. It's about expressing the now in all its complexity and richness. That brings us to the end of our exploration of the present tense. Up next, we'll venture into the future tense. So, hang in there. Now, for the final part of our journey, let's take a leap forward and explore the future tense, its various forms, and how its usage can alter the meaning of a sentence. The future tense in English is used to talk about events that will happen later than now. But just like with our past and present tenses, there are different ways to express the future, each with its own nuance. Firstly, we have the simple future tense, formed with will or shall, plus the base form of the verb. We generally use it to make predictions, promises, or spontaneous decisions. For instance, I will call you tomorrow, or it will rain later. Then there's the future continuous tense, which is used to talk about actions that will be ongoing at a specific future time. For example, this time tomorrow, I will be flying to New York. Next up, we have the future perfect tense, which is used to say an action will be completed by a certain time in the future. For example, by the end of this month, I will have finished this book. And lastly, we have the future perfect continuous tense used to talk about ongoing actions that will be completed at some specified time in the future. For example, by 2023, I will have been working here for 10 years. Now, here's where things get interesting. Sometimes we can use going to instead of will to talk about the future, especially when we have already decided or planned to do something. For example, I'm going to visit my parents this weekend. Using going to suggests a sense of certainty or intention that will doesn't always convey. Also, we can use the present continuous and even the simple present tense to talk about the future, particularly in the context of schedules and timetables. For instance, the train leaves at 8 p.m. or I am meeting her for lunch. So, as you can see, the future tense isn't just about will or shall. It's about expressing our plans, predictions, schedules, and even our certainties and uncertainties about what's yet to come. Well, that's a wrap on our exploration of the future tense. Remember, mastering these tenses takes time and practice, but it's well worth the effort. So keep practicing and keep exploring the wonderful world of English tenses. Till next time.